Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm bringing you a special kind of video where I will cover 6 things that you may or may not know about FGO, and what's great is that most of these things will actually aid you in actual gameplay situations, so there are pretty much tips as well. Alright, right off the bat, did you know that if a servant with taunt dies, all remaining attack actions the enemy has will be cancelled in that turn? What I mean is that if you look at the clip demonstrating this in the background, after Leonidas, who has taunted, dies, the third enemy does nothing. Now, as you guys probably know at this point, that enemy or enemies always have 1 to 3 actions depending on their rarity and numbers mostly. But as I said, this thing only concerns attack actions, meaning that if they still had a skill queued up or a noble phantasm, even if it's a single target one, they would still use those after the taunted servant dies. Another thing I should note, that if you have multiple servants with taunt active at the same time, if one dies, the enemies would use the remaining actions on the other taunted units. The second thing that you might not know is that if a servant reaches 99% MP gauge, they will automatically be moved to 100%. Well, not exactly. See, that's what most people assume based on their experience. But in reality, how it happens that if a servant's MP gauge reaches even a single little decimal over 99%, the game rounds it up to 100. Meaning that a 99% gauge is possible, but you would need to land an exact 99% gauge. It's very rare, but it does happen, as you can see in this image. Again, another thing that I should note, that this only applies to 99% being rounded up to 100%. If this happens with 199% gauge or 299% gauge if you have MP5, even if you have those extra decimals on top of those, they would not get rounded up to a 200 or 300%, so keep that in mind. Third on the did you know list is probably the most insignificant piece of information of these 6. As you guys might know, if you swap a servant with a plug suit, instead of the whole deck that turn getting reshuffled, any possible cards that the now swapped servant had in that turn will be replaced by random cards of the newly swapped in servant. But the thing I wanted to cover is that if you happen to swap a servant with the exact same servant, for instance me swapping a waiver with a waiver in here in this clip in the background, not only does the new waiver keep the old slots in this turn that the first waiver had, but he also keeps the exact same cards the old waiver had, meaning 3 arts cards in this case. Trust me, this is not a coincidence. I have tested it out hundreds of times during my farming of the Solomon raids this week. Number 4 on this did you know list is actually very interesting and useful in my opinion. You guys know that some rare skills and noble phantasms possess an attribute called buff block. What this does is that the next time that buff block target would buff themselves in any way, the buff would get nullified. Now, one would think that one buff block negates one buff logically, right? Well, it's mostly true, but here's the interesting thing that I wanted to tell you about. You see, a buff block doesn't just block one buff. I can't say that. One buff block doesn't just block one buff, it blocks one instance of a buff. What this means is that, as you can see in the example in the background, John Alter uses her MP on Qin Shi Huang and afflicts her one buff block on the target. And after the Emperor in retaliation uses his MP that gives him several buffs, as you can see from the image, you can see that they all get nullified despite Jalter only applying one buff block. So basically, a single buff block blocks all the buffs that a skill or a noble phantasm would grant. This is why good old Mephisto can be absolutely amazing in many fights due to his third skill applying a buff block 3 whole times on a single target. So I hope this video made people appreciate him more, if anything. Fifth thing can also be very useful once you learn the habit of doing it. This is not really a did you know thing, but rather a did you realize thing. So basically what I call this is MP buffering. Basically using an MP card to trigger a card chain without actually using it. Again, an example will make it clear. So if you look in this clip, I would like to get as many stars as I can from using Lancelot's MP to crit my way through the second wave. But sadly, it looks like I can't produce a quick chain for that sweet 10 extra stars. But wait, I can. I have exactly 3 quick cards if I also count Frankenstein's MP card. So basically, I position her MP card as the last card in the chain, making sure it won't get used while simultaneously providing me that missing card for a delicious quick chain. Now be warned, as if you don't know your damage well, you might end up wasting an MP you are trying to buffer with. But here in this example, it was an excellent play as it netted me a very nice 47 stars for the next wave. And the final thing on the list, which is also my favorite one, is that did you know that an MP seal is actually amazing? A lot of people actually overlook this somewhat rare of an attribute, but that's because most people don't realize how good it is. See, what people think it does is that it prevents an MP from being fired off. While that is true, the thing people don't know is that it's the best delay mechanic in the entire game. That is because MP seal, in addition to preventing MP use on a turn, also prevents MP gain in that turn. Yes, as you can see in the background, Edison MP applies an MP seal to all enemies, and surely enough, none of them gain any MP ticks after the turn is over. This also means that you should probably use your MP seals as soon as you can to maximize cooldown usage. Or in some situations where you fight different class enemies with different sized charges, you can also make great use out of this. Say you fight a saber and an archer. They have a 4 and a 3 bar MP gauges respectively, but if you MP seal the archer, for one turn they won't gain an MP tick, meaning that they will both MP at the same turn now after 3 turns, making your defensive cooldown timing many times better. So I hope everyone watching this video will finally appreciate the awesomeness that is MP block as well. Phew, that was quite the list, if I do say so myself. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads and streams. I make videos regularly for both NA and JP, so be sure to stay notified. You can also check out the channel's Discord and my Patreon if you really want to help me out. The links for both of those will be in the description of this video. And I will see you guys on the next video. Peace out.